Hey guys, welcome back to the unpolitical but political podcast. I go by the name Destiny. I was literally procrastinating this because I struggle to start certain things, or if I know I have to do something, I literally struggle to put my mind to it. But at least the achievement for me now is that I managed to do it. Okay, so today we're talking about emotional intelligence. I was actually thinking about this yesterday because I literally was I think I wouldn't say that I mastered the art of emotional intelligence because I don't know if it's just how I am or just because of my autism, but not saying I'm using that as an excuse, but I don't think that I mastered the art of emotional intelligence, only because obviously the whole concept of emotional intelligence is being able to identify and perceive the use of emotion in communication and trying to relate to others effectively and constructively. But I wouldn't say that I mastered the art of emotional intelligence because I don't struggle to understand emotion. I mainly struggle to understand facial facial expressions and stuff. So I don't know if that I don't know if emotional intelligence kind of sits with that narrative where you are trying to understand emotional communication and trying to interpret how someone is feeling and what they might be going through, or just being able to understand the emotion in order to respond to someone's emotions. If you understand what I mean, I think I'm kind of going around in circles. But yeah, I was thinking about it today and I was just if I had to put myself in a situation or it's a scenario and try and channel the art of trying to understand emotional intelligence, or if I was put in a scenario where I was in an argument with someone, how would I interpret how they're feeling? Because I feel I've been in a lot of instances where I have been in an argument with someone or a disagreement with someone, and my first instinct is try and channel how they're feeling right now. Try and put yourself in their shoes, and then I would be oh, are you okay? Because I'm very self-observant, and I always I'm so worried about people around me and my surroundings that I'm always curious to know how they're feeling, or sort of checking in with myself and wondering if I'm okay, since I was the one that was hurt predominantly. But most of the time I think it's it's a paramount for me. I'm just always worried about how someone is feeling, or sort of putting myself first. But I don't know, I feel I don't know, I don't know if anyone else is like this, but do you guys feel you mastered the art of emotional intelligence? Because I feel it's almost a psychological thing where it falls into the category of being able to sort of test yourself and be respondent to statements on someone's behaviour, or the ratings of their behaviour. For example, I kind of believe, or I often feel I understand how others are feeling in some certain situations. And then a part of me is I kind of disagree with a situation that might have happened yesterday or on that day or whatever it is. I kind of feel I alternate between how I feel and how they feel. But in terms of responding, I think... Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, I am autistic, so I have had problems with understanding facial expressions my whole life. So I've always thought certain facial expressions kind of throw me off, and I get very wounded up about it. And a lot of people have tried to teach me that facial expressions, not all facial expressions are bad ones. People do things out of curiosity, or some people do it out of admiration or inspiration, or not all facial expressions are deemed as malicious. Some of them are some people probably think, oh, like, wow, she's gorgeous, or like, oh my gosh, she's so tall, or like just stuff like that. I don't think people mean harm when they stare at me, but I always misinterpret it to be like a sort of envious thing, which is it's given petty, which I shouldn't have to think like that. I should always think that like most facial expressions are positive. But I think one thing that I don't know if I'm just like rambling, but I think that in order for me to understand how someone is feeling, I think I just have to know how to perceive emotions correctly and not jump. Because in so many cases, I sometimes understand non-verbal signals such as like body language or facial expressions, and then in some instances I don't, which is bizarre because if someone was meant to show me like a diagram of like different facial expressions, I will pick the ones that seem like the ones that I would know, like the happy face, the blushing, the wink, like just things that are very blatantly obvious. And then when it comes to like other facial expressions where it's like confusion or like anything that just looks particularly unable to perceive in terms of in terms of like facial expressions, I will literally struggle to describe how someone is feeling. Like, I don't know if some of it falls into like cognitive activity, or like I just promote my own thinking by trying to express someone's anger or observe how someone could be feeling or what it could mean. So like, for example, when I was in secondary school, I used to get in a lot of like misunderstandings with like a lot of my ex-friends. And a lot of the reasonings would be is communication. It wouldn't even just be like emotional or psychological like reasonings. It would just be communication. And literally not all of them, I wouldn't say all of them were like miscommunication, but a lot of them were like, I would always perceive things a bit wrongly. So I had this other friend ex-friend. I wouldn't say she's my friend because we don't have no contact, but I had an ex-friend at the time who literally... So if anyone doesn't know, when I was in secondary school, I was very popular. I'm not trying to be cocky, but I was very popular. And I had a lot of friends. It may have not looked like it, but I had a lot of like friends who I thought were friends. And we would hang around and stuff like this. And I would say about 99.9% of the time, I was always invited to... So the way it worked in the school that I went to a special needs school. And the way that it worked is that every lunchtime, there was always like, I would say curricular activities. There was always like a club that you could join, and like people would go to like, the Wii club where you can play like video games, and like the art room where you could paint art, or you could go outside, or you can go to the karaoke, or go and play Lego or something like that. And when I used to hang around with this girl who I was very close with, even though our friendship was like very on and off, and we used to always be outside, like near the football pen, but we wasn't really doing anything. We were just outside, like just living out. We're just outside all the time. And the friends that I had at the time would always invite me to like the IT room, and we'll just go and watch like movies and like Netflix and just chill and laugh and like joke around. We had like a lot of inside banter, and the girl that I was hanging around with used to always think that I was running away from her. And what would happen is she would go and tell our tutor that we were running away from her. And sometimes it would catch me off guard, and my teacher would be like, oh, Destiny, I just need to speak to you, because I'm not going to say her name, but I would just call her Layla. Layla, you thought that you were running away from her. And I was just like, that wasn't my intention. But in certain situations, like, even if we're not friends, this kind of ties back to what I'm talking about now. In certain situations, when we're not talking, I would always perceive her to be talking about me or looking at me or giving me dirty looks or whatever it is. And in the back of my head, I knew that that's what she was doing, but a lot of the time that wasn't the case. And I think that's why I say I don't master like the act of emotional intelligence, only because I struggle to understand. For other people it might be basic, but for me I just struggle to understand body language and facial expressions. Like, I cannot tell the difference between if someone is trying to be if someone is trying to show positive attributes, or if someone is trying to be malicious with their intent. So I'll say for me, I struggle with like perceiving emotions, like overall. And also another thing that I've sort of like, I believe to struggle with, at least anyone who knows me can vouch for me, understanding emotions is very hard for me. Like, I cannot understand, like, I remember I have a group chat on Instagram, and it's just a bunch of people who are like me, who have like autism, ADHD, and it's called the neurodivergence group. And we're literally on there. This group starts, so basically how it started was, there was this woman on Instagram Live. I'm not going to say her name, but she knows who I'm talking about. This person knows who I'm talking about, and or knows I'm talking about them. Yeah, she was on Instagram Live, and I don't know who followed who. I think I must have followed her, 'cause her page looked very, like, I seem like, for me, when I went through her feed, I could just see that I could resonate with a lot of the things that she was posting, and most of her content is related to autism and like the stigma and just certain things that autistic people like struggle with. So one day she was on Instagram Live and I joined, and at the time it didn't have a lot of views, but she was on there doing a body doubling. If anyone doesn't know what that is where for us autistic people at least, we body double a lot, and I used to find myself doing that a lot at work, especially when I had a part-time job. She was on there body doubling, and what that is when you work with somebody that you can confide sort of motivation in. So if you feel like you can't, so say for example I'm doing my work and I just haven't got the motivation or courage to do it, instead of me sitting there and like procrastinating on whether I should do my work or not, I will, for example, go on YouTube and find like a study with me, and that is simply just body doubling, just having someone next to you who's also working, and then like that can help you feel the motivation to do it, because at least you're doing it together. And that's what she was doing on her live stream. She was just doing her own work and just body doubling. So I was just sitting on there, and then out of the blue I just started talking about like autism and like certain things that I didn't agree with, and like I just brought up a random conversation just to like talk, and a lot of people started to agree. And like over time I started to get into the motion of just joining the live stream and like just talking and like plucking up a conversation with somebody, even though I struggle to start a conversation, which was very like big of me to do, and I'm proud of myself for like doing that, because a lot of the time I lay back and I wait for people to come and talk to me before I even pluck up a conversation. But maybe because I was on a live stream, but typical, huh? Anyways, so I started plucking up the courage to like just go on the live stream and just like generate a conversation. And then as I started to talk about my experiences and like things that I don't agree with, and like, because she's also got autism as well, so it kind of made sense for me to talk. And a lot of the people who were joining the group chat must have started following her, as like they started to realize that they resonated with what she was saying. And so over time I started joining, and then one day I said on the live stream, I said, hey, we should like make a group chat, because I think everyone in here is sort of resonating with each other, and we're all like resonating with each other's experiences, and like this is like a good way to like network and like illustrate a conversation, and like talk about how I was probably the only one in that group chat that was writing a good amount of stuff that I don't agree with and stuff, and I'm very passionate. They could probably tell in the group chat too. And eventually a lot of people started like joining over time, and it was just such a good platform. But in terms of understanding emotion, I remember I was on the group chat, and I asked the group, I said, oh, like, do any of you guys struggle with alexithymia? And if you guys don't know what that is where you struggle to understand emotion and like sort of understand not other people's emotions but your own emotions specifically. So I could feel anxious, for example, and I could go to someone and say, oh, like I feel anxious, and they'd be like, oh, like why are you feeling anxious? And instead of me like sort of getting to the point and trying to convey why I feel anxious, it will be hard for me to like articulate that, because I know what I'm feeling, but I just can't like express it or articulate myself. So that's what alexithymia is. And I asked like the group chat, I said, oh, like, do you guys, any of you guys suffer with alexithymia? And they were like, well, one of them, I think one or two of them said yes, they do. And that's just that just ties back into understanding emotions. I think, well, I would love to say I think that I have alexithymia, because a lot of the time I struggle to process my own emotion. Like, I know I'm feeling a type of way, but for me to like explain it is very hard. I believe, I don't know, like I just struggle to convey how I feel to people. It's not because I don't want to talk, it's just I just find it very hard to explain how I feel. I don't know if it's like an autistic thing. Anyone who has autism can vouch. I'm not trying to blame this on autism. I just know like the traits that come with autism, which is why I keep relating it to my autism. But in terms of alexithymia, a lot of people were like, oh, like, you know, they struggle with alexithymia and they struggle to tell how other people, like, they try, which I think also ties into emotional intelligence, is being able to navigate how someone else is feeling, which is the case. And I think a lot of people who have alexithymia have got social anxiety and like struggle to read non-verbal cues, which is something that I can say I struggle with, not because of the context, but just because of how much it resonates with me. I haven't got social anxiety, but I do believe that I have some sort of lack of being able to pluck up a conversation with someone. I don't know if that ties into social anxiety. Someone can help me if you guys know. But yeah, it's just like struggling to understand non-verbal cues and like coming across certain things very awkwardly or lacking in humour. Like someone could make a joke. I remember, actually, this is my personal experience, when I was in college and it was my first year and I was doing a business course. It's crazy to say that it's crazy to now say I'm in uni, and I'm now bringing up the fact that I was in college when that just literally passed. But anyways, yeah, I was on my first year and I was doing a business course, and it was like a few months into the first year. Well, like, I think we were still in the first year, so it wasn't like too many months in. And some girl found a joke on Instagram. It was like I'll say she's still my friend. I don't talk to her now, but we had a good connection. A lot of the humour was between the both of us. And she found a joke on her phone. And I don't know if anyone deals with this, but like someone could bring up a joke or like create a joke or whatever it is, and they will find it so funny and like hysterical. And when they show you, like, a lot of people in the group didn't even know that I had autism until I disclosed it to them one time. I was like, do you guys know that I have autism? They're like, oh, I didn't even know, you don't even look autistic. And that's like a big stigma that kind of blew me. But yeah, she found a joke on Instagram and she started laughing. And she instantly started showing everyone who was in that group the joke. And for some reason, I just didn't understand the joke. And I was just sitting there, like, trying to process what the joke was, trying to convey. And I just didn't laugh or, like, show any signs of, I didn't show any signs of, like, laughter, because I just didn't understand the joke. And she was like to me, oh, how do you not find that funny? And she told me that I killed the joke because I couldn't understand it. And it wasn't because I wasn't interested in it. Like, honestly, if I understood the joke, I would have laughed. But because I didn't understand it, I didn't see the point in me laughing and pretending like I did, and then when they ask me, do you know what it means, and I just sit there and like find like a backup answer, it wouldn't make sense. So that kind of ties into alexithymia, because that's something that I struggle with, is lacking in humor. I just don't understand certain things, and people think that I just choose not to laugh, or I just, quote unquote kill the joke, or whatever it is. But that is something that I struggle with, which I think also ties into emotional intelligence. It's just like trying to understand those things. Another thing that I also struggle with sometimes is having empathy with difficult things that I'm going through. I wouldn't say I struggle with that, but that ties into emotional intelligence. It's like trying to navigate the difficult things that I could be going through. I remember that kind of was an issue for me when I was going through depression, was like understanding why I'm going through it. And like a lot of people will say, oh, that's life. Like people go through mental health and people go through depression and stuff like this, which is understandable. I have now gotten to a place in my life, maybe because I'm now 20 and I'm an adult, but I have gotten to a place to accept that this is life and there's nothing you can really do. You can't sugarcoat it. You can't like make it seem like admirable in your head. You have to just face it head on. But at the time, I was struggling to come to terms with why I was going through depression, and why I couldn't just take it for what it was, and like find ways to like get out of it. So that's like a sign that I probably struggle with understanding or emphasizing with myself. I can't talk. When it came to those situations, and a lot of people will say, "Destiny, you'll get through it. You need to stop dwelling on it." And they'll give me like a bunch of coping mechanisms that at the time just wouldn't help me for shit. Even if I tried. I remember I stepped out the house and I still came back home miserable, because I just wasn't feeling it, honestly. But at least I made the option to leave the house, which was a big achievement after being like housebounded for like so long. But now if I have to be honest, I'm at a place in my life where I'm like so happy and like couldn't be more happier. But yeah. But alexithymia, I think, also ties into emotional intelligence. Another thing that comes with alexithymia is being like really highly sensitive and like being just being highly sensitive to everything. Like it might not be that serious and you can just take it really wrongly and like misperceive everything. I think I have a problem with that as well. I take things very seriously. And a lot of people don't understand why I'm very sensitive and why I'm the way I am. And if I have to be honest and like candid, I have had a lot of people fuck me over throughout my whole like school life. I remember I had a ex-girlfriend and she literally, like, she didn't fuck me over. She didn't look like someone who was full of bad intent. She seemed like such a loving individual. But my ex literally fucked me over. Not in terms of heartbreak, but in terms of boundaries. And that sort of ties back into me when I spoke about setting boundaries. But like, she fucked me over really badly when it came to boundaries. I'm not gonna like sit here and play innocent and like act like, because I had a lot of respect for her. I love very hard. I don't know if that's just like a part of my astrology sign, but I love very hard as a Leo. So I was very committed to the relationship and I just had to leave because I was just like, I'm not gonna sit here and have my boundaries continuously like disrespected and like overstepped. So I left. And just in general, I think highly sensitivity for me is because of how for so long it's been like primitive years now that I've been fucked over by said person, especially at school when I thought I had genuine friends that would like, be my backup if I got into an argument or got into a fight. They would just fuck me over and, they would do things to hurt me and then play innocent when I called them out for it, or when I, go to a teacher and say, oh, like, in fact, I didn't even, I wasn't really vulnerable in school. Like, I didn't really tell people how I felt, but just certain situations like that, like, I have been mistreated for so long. Like, I think in the back of my head subconsciously that I can confide trust in people, only for them to just turn around and stab me in the back, which is why now I've become so hyper diligent and just, like, sensitive to certain situations. And people always tell me, oh, you're so sensitive, you can't take a joke. And it's just like, I could take a joke if I wasn't treated the way I fucking was. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I struggled my whole life to even just maintain a friendship because of how much fuckery I went through. You know, like, it's not something that I just choose to do. It's just how I am as an autistic individual. I mean, the traits of an autistic person is that we do struggle to maintain friendships. Like, we don't just choose to put ourselves in a friendship setting and then immediately fuck ourselves over. Like, we want to make friends. We want to be able to, like, be in a setting where we can, you know, maintain a conversation and talk and be highly vibrational and be, like, well committed to the communication. But it's just a part of us. Like, that's just how we are, which I think people also misperceive as well in some situations. But that just ties back into being highly sensitive. And that is why I'm very sensitive and I do take things personally, because I just don't want to put myself back in the same shithole of being, you know, manipulated, used, violated, boundary-wise, taken advantage of, disrespect. Like, I just don't want to see my younger self. I don't want to see myself like how I was when I was 15, 16. Do you know what I mean? Like, I look back at my younger self and I'm like, fuck, like, you went through a lot of shit. But now that I'm older, I want to change that. But yeah, that is something that I think ties into emotional intelligence, is alexithymia. And a lot of people who have listened to my podcast might agree with this. If you have some sort of disorder or some sort of emotional disorder, like alexithymia. But yeah, I don't know. That's just, I think, something that I struggle with. But another thing is, I mean, I don't think it's, like, a bad thing, but for anyone who does struggle, and I just wanted to say as well, like, even though I did say in the beginning of this podcast that I don't struggle with, that I think, what did I say? I said, I don't think I, like, mastered the art of emotional intelligence, but I kind of think after all the mental mishaps I went through, I think after just that experience and being in a place of mental instability and, like, not being able to be in the right train of thought and, like, being vulnerable, I generally think after those years, I think after I started to see the people around me and, you know, have people support me in those situations, I eventually started to see the red flags after I went through all of those mental mishaps. And I think over time I did learn emotional intelligence, and now I sort of channel it really well. So I'm not going to say my autism is a factor as to why I lack it, but I do think I have in some way mastered the art of emotional intelligence. Not to say that I know it completely 100%, because there's still things that I struggle with emotional-wise, but I do believe that I am able to accept more than I could. And I just sort of conquer it. But a lot of the things, if any of you guys struggle with emotional intelligence, there's ways to practice it. In case you didn't know, a lot of emotional intelligence goes into, you know, being able to accept criticism and responsibility. Like, in terms of, like, whatever situation you've gotten yourself into, is being able to be responsible for that and being able to accept that, you know, you were wrong in that situation, or you must have done something that upset somebody else, and being able to just accept that that was you made that situation turn left. And that's what I've had to come to terms with sometimes as well. It's just like if I cause some sort of, dilemma in a situation, I have to come to terms with it and just take it as a responsibility to apologize, learn, grow, and like sort of just be a woman about it and not sit there and act innocent. I just have to like come to terms with it and just accept it. Another practice of emotional intelligence is being able to move on after making a mistake. And that's something that I think I resonate with, because for me, I've made a lot of mistakes. Trust me, I am a human being. I've made plenty of mistakes. Anyone who knows me knows that I've fucked over so many times in this life. I've gotten myself in situations that I wasn't supposed to be in, and thought my life was going to be not over. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but like it made me question my life twice, because I was just like, there's so many things I could be doing, and instead I'm using my life the complete opposite. But when I say mistake, is like doing something that you didn't know you didn't know it was wrong and you did it anyway. I struggle to move on from making a mistake. Like I can make one mistake and I would sit and just throw myself under the bus all day, every day, just nitpicking at myself. And like, that's why I said it goes into form of self-care as well. It's like, if you can just move on from a mistake you made and make yourself at least feel less worse about it, you will eventually master the art of emotional intelligence and self-care, which ties back into episode 3 that I just posted yesterday. But yeah, being able to move on from a mistake is also very important, I think. Even if the mistake is small, like just being able to like pick yourself back up and say, hey, like that was a mistake. Like, you are a human being, you are coexisting. Like, you're not a human if you don't, move on from mistakes. But yeah, another thing is being able to say no when you need to. That goes back into setting boundaries for episode 2 that I posted, I think, the day before yesterday. Saying no, it's so important. I used to be someone who was so scared to hurt people's feelings, and I would sit there like an idiot and say yes, 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 even though my cup was already empty and I had no capacity in my lungs to like feel the needs of other people's wants. But saying no is very important. Like, you need to learn how to say no ASAP Rocky. Like, don't let people take you like you are a robot, because you're not. Like I said in my last episode, you are not Superman. You cannot save everybody. Please start saying no. Like, don't be afraid to hurt people's feelings, because it's just like, you need to just learn how to stop. Like, you just need to learn how to say no, period. Like, you don't always have to, like I said, I remember I gave this advice. I said to you, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Like, fuck what anyone has to say. I'm sorry, but I'm tired of hearing this narrative of this productivity and like being forced into things. Like, people have a choice in this life. Like, you can make a decision and be perfectly fine the next day. You're not gonna die if you don't make that decision. Like, it's perfectly fine. Like, if you don't want to do something, just say you don't want to do it. Don't sit there and boost your own ego and say, oh, like, just do it. Like, it's never that serious. Like, don't deprecate yourself. Like, it's not nice at all to yourself and to your own well-being. Like, you need to start saying no and like stop forcing this narrative that if you don't do it, then this person's going to be upset, or if you don't do it, then this person's never going to talk to me again. If they don't want to talk to you, fuck them. Like, those type of people are not your people. If they can't accept that you don't want to do something and come to terms with with the fact that you have boundaries and there are going to be things that you don't want to do, then that friend or that family member can fuck right off. Like, I'm sorry that I'm being like very direct, but honestly, that is, to me personally, I would not keep a family member or a friend like that, because it's just like, you have to come to terms with the fact that I'm still a human being, period. Another thing is being able to share your feelings with others. Oh, this is a hard and tricky one for me, because I literally spoke about alexithymia, which is that ties into how much I struggle with being able to share my feelings with other people. Like, I cannot, in no way, shape, or form, articulate myself. Even if I try, and I don't know if it's just the way I explain it, but some people struggle to people just struggle to, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of people just struggle, well, I struggle alone with sharing how I feel. There's been a lot of instances in my life where I've felt something and it just turns out that, like, I just can't explain how I feel. Like, I could say to someone, I feel sick, and I'd be like, oh, like, explain to me how you're feeling sick. And I just don't know how to explain myself. Like, I know I feel something, but in being able to articulate myself and not sound like I'm just making it up or making an excuse or, like, beating around the bush or whatever is very hard. And a lot of the time, I don't know if this is, like, a internalized stigma or it's just something that's been highly perpetuated and ingrained in our society. But, like, whenever I try to, when I explain things, I take a long time to explain it. And I've had a lot of people come up to me and be like, oh, just get to the point, like, you're taking too long, just say it. I hate when people take so long to say things. Like, if you have something to say, just say it. Like, I just want to move on. And it's just like, excuse me, like, you asked me how I feel. And now that I go out my way to explain to you how I feel, now for some reason I'm the bad guy because I'm struggling to express how I feel. Like, and it's just like, as someone who already struggles to do enough things in life, socially, you expect me to now be able to explain to you without stuttering time and time again, trying to explain to you how I feel. Like, I think that's a form of just manipulation, in my opinion. Like, pushing someone to move on from something that that's why I don't understand when people say, oh, how are you feeling? And then when you take long to get to the point, they get pissed off at you. And it's just like, bro, like, I'm a human being. Like, let me express how I feel first before you just jump down my throat and start attacking me, you know? But that is a form of practicing emotional intelligence, is being able to share your feelings with others. Another one is being able to solve problems in ways that work for everyone. I think I'm quite good at that. Just having a solution to every problem. I think I'm quite good at that in some aspects. For me, in certain situations, like, for example, my mum, she would come up to me with, like, a situation, and being her daughter, I try my best to find a solution to her problems or any problem in general. And I think I'm quite good at that. She will come up to me and say, oh, like, Destiny, this happened today, or this is acting like this, or do you think I should do this? And I would always be able to navigate that problem and identify it and then find a solution to help that problem. So I would say I'm quite good at that. And for anyone out there, if you are good at that, let me know. But yeah, I'm quite good at solving problems. I'm very, like, highly intellectual in that aspect. So that's something that I do. I think in terms of the whole concept of emotional intelligence, I think that's one thing that I'm quite good at, is just finding a solution to every problem and being able to, like, navigate my way around it and, like, turn it into a positive. And yeah. Another one for emotional intelligence is having empathy for other people. I feel like I have a lot of empathy for other people. In a lot of aspects in my life, 20 years of living, I have put people before myself. Because I know my cup is already full. So, and if I need to do my own things, I do it beforehand. So I don't really need to worry about, like, not filling my cup. If anyone doesn't know what the term filling my cup means, it just means, like, making sure that you're okay before going to help someone else who's in need, essentially, emotionally, mentally, responsibility wise, or whatever it is. That's what the term means. But yeah, my cup is always full before I go and help anyone else. And Another thing, another like practical for emotional intelligence is having great listening skills. I think for me, if I was in a relationship, um, I think that would be that would be a green flag for me. I'm very good at listening to people and remembering word for word exactly what they said. Um, and it's funny because when I was in primary school, a lot of my auditory memory was to do with listening. Um, they will put like you know when you're in primary school and they'll make you read like a an article or a novel. A lot of it was novel because we were doing like English literature or English language, and they will like pull up a novel, and the whole concept of it was for you to read it and then like sort of retrieve information from that book and then put it into context and then understand why or identify why someone's feeling that way, or like the narrator might have said something or whatever it is. When I was in primary school, I literally had auditory memory. So a lot of my listening would be eliminated, essentially. Like, I just struggled to process auditory information, anything that was recorded, anything that was, you know, like, you know how some people listen to, like, audibles, just, like, books that are being read to them. In primary school, I struggled with that. Like, I couldn't remember anything. I had really bad, not problems. I guess it was a problem, I guess. I had problems with retaining information. So, but now that I've worked through it, I would love to say I worked through it, but I can say now that I'm a great listener when it comes to people, like, talking to me and, like, telling me how they feel, whatever, or just, like, anything in general. That is a green flag of mine. I am very good at listening. I can remember things from years ago that people have said to me. So, yeah, that's also practical. Knowing why you do the things you do. That comes to, like, being self-aware and knowing your intention, which kind of ties into self-care. If you know why you do the things you do, then realistically you don't need to owe anyone no explanation. You don't need to owe anyone anything. At the end of the day, what matters is you and your intentions and your worth. And yeah, the last one is not being judgmental of others. That for me ties back into bullying. I try not to be judgmental, even though in some situations it can be hard. I remember I was scrolling through an app one day, and there's a live feature on this app. I'm not on it now, but when I was on this app, because obviously technology is now emerging, so things are becoming more accessible. But I was scrolling through this app one day, and there was someone on a live stream. She was from the United States of America, a white woman, I'll be crystal clear. And I'm not afraid to say it because I don't stand alongside this person. But she was wearing a red hat, and on that hat it said, this, by the way, this ties into not being judgmental of others, but I didn't comment anything because it was just like, it wasn't really worth me commenting anything. And I'm not I'm not like off that nature. I don't just comment on things that I don't like. I just scroll past it. But yeah, she was on a live stream and she was wearing a red hat, and on the red hat it said, "Make America Great Again." And from that context, you could definitely tell who she supports, and it was Donald Trump. And next to her, I mean, on the live stream now, on that app, you can now zoom in. So that's like a new feature that they've added to this app on the future, which is the live stream. And she zoomed in where you could see her and you could see the TV. And she was watching Donald Trump on the news. And it took so much in me to not say anything, because I don't stand with anything that man says or does. A lot of the things that he does is political. A lot of the things that he does is ethical. I think as a human being, he kind of disrespects his own morals and sort of disregards them in a way. Especially with the things that I've heard and the things that he says, and like the whole immigrants thing, and like just how racist he is as a person, and you know, the things that he's done for the country in America overall is just complete fuckery, and he's just diminished that country in a way that I don't think even Donald Trump can revive from. And it took me so much to not be judgmental of it. Even at the time when I didn't understand, I didn't even know what fucking emotional intelligence was, because I didn't have that term in my vocabulary, so I wasn't aware of myself having emotional intelligence. But just to not judge that situation was nearly impossible for me, because I have so much against that man. But talking like how I am now, I was just in my head, I was thinking, how do you support someone like that, you know? He lacks so much morals and respect for himself and others, and like the way he just treats the country of his own in general just shows you how ingrained some of the problems we have in our society already is. And yeah, he was just the real perpetuator of racism. He was the real perpetuator. I don't even know if that's even a word. But he just seems like the problem to every permanent issue in this country now. America, I'm talking of. And I think that's the reason why racism still coexists, because of Donald Trump and how ignorant he is. And just, anyways, that's nothing to do with what we're talking about, but that was just a time in my life where I just tried not to judge the situation, because a lot of people do believe that he is somewhat of a good human being when he isn't. But yeah. But overall, emotional intelligence is very essential. They always say it's good for like interpersonal communication, because in any situation, it's just easier for you to navigate how someone is feeling, which is a form of emotional intelligence, just being able to like identify an emotion, or just being able to like target a emotion for what it really is. I think a lot of emotional intelligence sort of ties into being like strong in your IQ. Like a lot of people do the IQ test, whereas a lot of it ties into like the ability to just what's the word? To sort of navigate like difficult, I don't even know, like it's sort of like critical thinking essentially, is what IQ is. And a lot of it is just to strengthen your own social and emotional intelligence. And like a lot of tests are done on that, and just to see how high your IQ is. And I'm very convinced that my IQ is pretty high. I wouldn't say that high. I know a lot of people who have a very high IQ. I remember I came across this article, and it was about a man who had a really high, like, who had the highest IQ, and his name is called Stephen Hawking, who is obviously like, that was at the time I didn't know about who he was, but he had the highest IQ of 160. And if anyone who doesn't know who Stephen Hawking is, he is he's a guy that obviously he's very popular in science, and a lot of his life sort of ties into navigating like not geographical, but like I haven't got like the energy. He's just he's a bro, my brain is so blank, dude. He's just very intelligent, and he's an author and a director of research, and yeah, he's just really good at what he does. Anyways, sorry, my brain went blank for a second. But yeah, he has a really high IQ. He actually kind of inspires me, because even though he is nonverbal, and he is a professor, he really inspires me because it just shows you that regardless of your condition or your disability, like, you are able to do anything. And him dying was really, like, heartbreaking for me because I looked up to him a lot. But he did have a lot of books. I remember he wrote one called The Grand Design. He wrote another one called A Brief of a History Time. He wrote a lot of books, actually. He wrote Brief Answers of the Big Questions. He wrote The Universe in a Nutshell. He wrote a brief history of time. He wrote The Theory of Everything. He wrote a lot of books that I remember. He wrote The Black Hole. He wrote Black Hole and Baby Universe. He wrote a lot, and he just really inspired me. Like, he's very intelligent, and it just helps me understand that as an autistic person, I could be doing anything that I want to do, regardless of what people might think I'm not able to do, which is a very ableist mindset. But that just ties into, having more emotional intelligence than just, like, being higher than your IQ. Another one is, so it's funny because as much as I say I don't master the art of having emotional intelligence, apparently having highly, I like this sort of example sort of contradicts the whole thing, because they always say, like, this example says, like, having a highly emotional intelligent, like, emotional intelligent people, like, have a hard time delivering negative feedback for fear of hurting other people's feelings. And that's, like, for me, I wouldn't say I don't even know. I don't think I struggle with giving feedback. Like, if I'm being dead honest with people and, like, sort of, like, brutally honest, I'm not scared to hurt people's feelings. But I can't receive negative feedback. Like, it's just not a part of my nature. Like, I just can't. I don't know. I just struggle to receive feedback from people. I guess I have the fear of just losing everything I have. I don't know. But that's, like, another example and drawback of having someone who's, like, really emotional intelligent. They just struggle to receive negative feedback because they know themselves so well emotionally that they don't want to hurt that. I remember I was reading this thing. I read a lot of, like, articles and, like, books and shit. Not books, like, in person, but, like, books online and stuff, which is, like, a lot of research. And there was a research that came out that was talking about how, I know this ties back into the it ties back into, I think it's the IQ or something, but it was talking about something along the lines of having an EQ. I don't know what that is. I need to do my research on that. But, like, it was saying that people who have, like, a high EQ can be used for, like, manipulative and deceptive purposes. I don't know, like, what it was referencing, but I found it really interesting. I hope I can remember, like, what EQ was. I think it's the same term as an IQ. I'm not 100% sure. But it is... it's the same thing as emotional intelligence. So it's basically the ability to recognize, interpret, and regulate your own emotions and understand those of other people's emotions. So it's the same thing. But yeah, people who have a high EQ sometimes can be used for manipulative and deceptive purposes. And that, I sort of sat back and, like, asked myself that question, because I was like, I claim to have such a high art of emotional intelligence, but I'm scared that I might be perceived as manipulative or whatever it is, because I just know how to navigate my own feelings and other people's feelings so well that in any situation anyone can just perceive me as manipulative, because I may look at a situation and try and abuse it, but that's not always... Anyone who has a emotional intelligence, that's not their intention. Their intention is just to have the ability to come to terms with like emotional skills naturally, and have the ability to develop and improve. But yeah, that's mainly it actually. This podcast was pretty long. Reflection is also another one. I find myself reflecting on a lot of things sometimes. Like, there'll be certain situations that happen in my life, not even just like emotional wise, but just like situations in general. And I would always look back. Like, I started going to the gym now, because I sort of miss my athletic side. Not like physique wise, I just mean like being athletic or not being athletic. That doesn't really. I just miss being in sports. So I went back to the gym, and my goal is really high right now. Like, I'm really aiming for something really big in terms of being in the gym. So I'm working towards it. I don't know if anyone experiences this, but when I was in the gym, I was in the gym and someone came in. It was like a man, and he just had a really good physique. Like, he was really built. He had a lot of definition in all his like upper body, and it was so hard to not be intimidated by that. But I came out of the gym and I was just like reflecting on how I was comparing myself to someone else who has probably been in the gym for like years, and I looked back and I was like, Destiny, you can literally do that if you just put your mind to it and like be consistent and just eat the right food. You will be able to get there. And I was just reflecting. I was like, why am I comparing myself to someone who's probably been in the gym longer than I have? Like, I've just started going back and I'm already expecting myself to be Hulk, which is nearly impossible. But even just like navigating why you're feeling that way and like trying to see the unseen factors that might be contributing to those feelings can help. But yeah, I literally sat down with myself and I was like, why the fuck am I comparing myself to a man who probably has a high testosterone than me, can build muscle relatively quickly than a woman. But like, even just aside from the scientific facts, like literally I could be in that same position if I keep being consistent in the gym. Like, I am when I got my what's the word? Is it like a when I started going to the gym, since I started going, I've been consistent for almost like 5-6 weeks now. I haven't been in a while because I'm on my Easter break, but when I do go back, I'm going to keep it the same way I was keeping it, and I'm going to try and eat more protein. And yeah, that was just another thing that ties into emotional intelligence. And also being able to understand how your emotions like differ from other people's. So why you could be feeling why you feel, and then like sort of different, like comparing it to another person's emotion and putting 2 and 2 together and sort of like not nitpicking, but like navigating, like identifying each emotion essentially. Because then it just becomes easier to understand the role that emotions play in and how people think and behave. But yeah, that's mainly it. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. It took me a while to kind of decide what I wanted to talk about, so I'm sorry for the delay in time. But I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who is currently streaming my podcast. I didn't think I was going to get this far. And it means a lot to me that people actually enjoy listening to my rants and me talk about things that I'm really passionate about. I have been speaking of doing a podcast for so long, and I remember I asked one of the girls in the group chat of the neurodivergence if I could be in her podcast, and even just when she was open to the fact of me saying that I wanted to, she happily accepted me to go on, and I just sat there and like almost fainted because I was so scared of what the conversation was going to be about. But I really, really, really appreciate everyone who is listening to my podcast. The impressions are crazy, especially on Spotify. People are streaming the fuck out of it. I have 46 impressions at the moment and 28 plays. A lot of people have enjoyed the Setting Boundaries podcast that I did and the self-care one. It's already ranking on top 10. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. I will continue to do more and sort of talk about similar topics that obviously attract more of an audience. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for streaming my podcast. I'm so happy. It makes me so happy, and it brings such a light in my day that you guys have done what you did. But yeah, please keep streaming. They're now available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Overcast, Spreaker, and Spotify. The link tree is in my bio on my Instagram if anyone wants to tune in. Please send me any request. Carly, please hit me up. I have been wanting to join your podcast for so long. I have a lot to say, clearly. I will at you on Instagram. Please hit me up and we can talk. I should probably put my email in my bio, but I have got an email if you want to email me. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. I have been Destiny. Thank you for listening to the unpolitical but political podcast, and I will see you in the next one. I'm about to post this one now, so please go and stream it. Thank you.